If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you about it. It's free, which is amazing. And there are these really cool creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you, so it's easy to be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get podcasts. And you get to make money with no minimum listenership, which is really cool. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started right away. Yoga teachers, mindfulness leaders, and energy workers, are you ready to stop side hustling and start making an income doing what you love? Welcome to the Marketing Off the Mat podcast. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll dive into conversations with successful creatives in wellness, business, marketing, and more to uncover practical methods to take you from A to B and have some fun along the way. My name is Jessica Cross, and I'm so excited to be here with you. Let's dive in. Welcome back. This is Marketing Off the Mat, and I'm Jess. I'm so glad to be here with you today. We have a really cool episode today. It's a clip that I did from a talk with my friend, Gabi Metz. She's the content yogi, and you've heard her here on the podcast before. We were diving into, some of the mindset stuff when it comes to marketing our business and putting ourselves out there. And we spend so much time talking about the actual tactics, but we've got to make sure that we got our mind right before we start putting ourselves out there. And I wanted to share this portion of that talk with you because I feel it's so important. We dive into a very buzzy term that is all over the internet, all over the interwebs, imposter syndrome. And I'm sure you have come across that. And I'm going to bet, because if you're anything like me, you've definitely felt it, these self-limiting beliefs. And I want to start by first saying, remember, there's nothing wrong with you. If you have felt these self-limiting beliefs in your business or in your life, it's totally normal. It's totally common. I have it too. Pretty much everyone I've ever spoken to has felt that same way. So the more that we talk about it, the more we recognize and acknowledge, the less power it has over us. So I want to share this episode with you for that very reason today. Take a listen. I hope it fills your cup.
How you actually see it impacting people trying to grow a yoga business online?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I feel like imposter syndrome is so buzzy right now. When I was thinking about this, we made plans to chat about this ahead of time. So I was like, oh yeah, I love imposter syndrome. It's almost synonymous with just being in business these days, and especially being women. It's like, oh, it's imposter syndrome. And you're like, yeah, I know what that means. But really, like, what does that mean? Like, what are the feelings? What are the energetics behind it? And what I could really kind of come up with is, it's not a new term. It's actually was coined in the 70s, so it's been around for a really long time, but it seems to be a little bit more prevalent these days. It seems to be, I don't know if it's because we're in the Brene Brown era, which is happy, hallelujah, to be in that era. That it's kind of, yeah, I know, I'm sure we're all raising our hands here. It's just so, maybe we have the language now, maybe we are more exposed to it, and it's something that we can kind of wrap our brains around and actually understand. It's like, that's what I'm feeling. So, imposter syndrome is when we feel like a fraud, basically. It kind of just distills all the way down to that. We're stepping into a new season, a new job, a new role, trying something in our business, or maybe we're stepping up at the front of the room for the first time to teach, and we're like, who the heck am I to do this? Who the heck am I to say, okay, like, I'll raise my hand? And we start feeling this like squeeziness around the heart center. We start feeling this like, are they going to find me out that I'm a fraud? I'm not an expert in this. They're going to know. It's all going to be unraveled, and then this like shame and vulnerability kind of comes up into our hearts and into our minds. And we start feeling those things, and we just kind of close down. It's just energetically, like our heart center, our throat closes down a little bit too. And so this idea of imposter syndrome can creep into all parts of our business and into our lives. I could probably name a dozen times when this is popped up, and I don't think it's ever something that we really get past. That it will kind of come up several different times when we're met with a new task, or we're met with a new opportunity. Maybe we're teaching in a new location, or we're starting to teach Zoom classes. Maybe we're opening a membership and we just are met with those feelings. Once again, it's kind of like an old friend. Hey there, I see you. So yeah.
I can actually remember, so when we first immigrated here, we so in South Africa, we privileged enough for I don't even know how you want to put it, but like we don't fill up our own gas at the petrol station. It just doesn't happen. So here I had to do it for the first time, and there I was on YouTube trying to get tutorials of trying to fill up my own car. It was like a crazy thing. And then there were the voices saying, you can't do this, you have no idea what you're doing, you need to phone your husband. And then there was like damsel in distress. So it was like, I'm just laughing because it creeps everywhere, and it is so true. So I'm just having like a real giggle about that. But besides the point, so I love that explanation, and I think that it's so true. And like you see all these people creating these reels about it, with imposter syndrome like lurking in the background. So it's like a real, it's funny. It's nice because like I agree, people are having conversations about it, people are talking about it, and it's like almost like there's no shame, but there's still like a stigma because we still don't do it, right? So we're still not pushing, we still care so much about what other people think. And where I'm at with my people is that I try to explain to them is that, guys, like Instagram's just an app. Like at the end of the day, you put down your phone, you carry on living your real life. Like it's just an app. It's just it's you hand so much power over to something that doesn't give you that same kind of power back, if that makes sense. And so just in terms of when it comes to marketing, like I mean, I can see like with my community, they get stuck. Like they don't even create, so they plan and plan and plan and plan and plan and plan, and they've got the plan, but it's just hitting that execution button. It's like or execution's a bad word, but it's like hitting the button to say, okay, cool, like let's just start, let's just do this. Like what other ways do you find that this like negatively impacts yoga teachers on actually marketing themselves?
Oh, yes. And if you're listening right now, you're watching us and you feel that, you say, I love to plan, I have all these ideas, but when it comes to actually hitting, like, press the post or sending the email or raising your hand for that new class, whatever it is, it's so relatable, by the way. Like it's something that we all deal with. I know I deal with it in seasons, and it's gotten in my way. I know I definitely has gotten in my way, and I'm sure that it will again. So it's not a thing that's like, Gabi and I are sitting up on our pedestals. It's like, this is something we don't deal with. We deal with it for sure. So if you're feeling that, just know you're not alone. And then if you're wanting to figure out ways to push past it, I have a couple of ideas for you. The very first thing is, let's go ahead and set it to the side, acknowledge it, let it sit in the seat, maybe move it to the back seat and say, okay, I see you, fear. I see you, imposter syndrome. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for raising your hand and trying to protect my heart. I need to move forward in my business. So take a back seat. Let's get to posting, because I find that if I'm feeling that, like, I don't feel like posting, I'm afraid of what people are going to think of me, I'm afraid of X, Y, and Z, there's usually a very long list. If I just press send, it usually goes away. It's that action. So there are lots of, business coaches out there that say, action, clarity comes with action. So when we move past that area that's blocking us, that's keeping us safe, then we start to unpack a little bit. We start to say, oh, okay, actually that post really resonated with my audience. What can I take from this? Or it actually didn't. Oh no. Well, what happened? Nothing. I'm okay. Like it's actually fine. Like nothing bad happened to me. I just learned something though. I learned that maybe that type of content isn't quite right. Is it the image? Is it the reel? Is it the caption? Okay, cool. So how can I adjust? And I find I start to create this momentum. This momentum kind of takes hold. And this is, even aside from Instagram, we can use it in our email marketing. We start looking at the analytics and seeing what's landing. Is it the time of day of week, type of content? Was it too busy? Was it what didn't have enough content? You just start using it as a way to gather information rather than feeling like every single eye on the world is at you. And start using it as a way to experiment.
Completely. Like, I think that reframing right there changes the game completely. And I know for me, initially, when I started like Instagram, when I started my emails, when I started this whole online journey, and even just putting myself out there and saying, like, hey, I actually have a service and I can do X, Y, and Z for you, or I can help you. And it just felt like, oh, like, gosh, I just wanted to crawl into a hole. But reframing it almost in a way, and like marketers do this, it's qualitative research. The difference is that we have got qualified people now that have shown some kind of interest in what we're doing, and we just have to tweak our strategy slightly. And maybe strategy is a scary word even for some of the people watching, so I don't really like to use it, but maybe we've just got to tweak our actions, and just kind of like I've had reels that have done really well, and I've had reels that have gotten like 2 views, and it's like heart-wrenching when you just think, oh, what happened? And then it's like, okay, you know what, my audience doesn't respond to this, and that's cool, because I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to try something different, or whatever it is. So and like I've actually got a story. So there was a time where I scheduled a post to go out, and usually I like to hang around the posts once they've gone out. And so I did it, and I scheduled it out, but I scheduled it for the wrong day. So the wrong post went out on the wrong day, and it was this post about something. It was like for engagement, like I wanted to get to know our audience and their thoughts and stuff, and it was a post about dogs in the bed, yes or no. And the funniest thing happened, like I didn't even know that it went out, and my phone started blowing up. I couldn't believe it. I was on the fence. I didn't even want to send this out because I was like, who cares about this? And everybody had an opinion. And I was surprised. People are not actually all for dogs in the bed, but that's the point, right? Is that even the things that seem really stupid to you, could be really relatable and connect with somebody else on a different level. And that's what I teach my people. I teach people and yoga teachers that it's not just about yoga. Like, you're showing up, and you've got to show up as a holistic person who is relatable, and you have got real desires. You have got real likes and dislikes. You've got real challenges and stuff. And this is not a place to air your dirty laundry and get into all those nitty gritty details, but it is a place to show up and connect at a heartfelt level. And I think that for me is what I love about Instagram, and that's what I try to do for all of my students, is just to reframe it and look at it at this heartfelt place where we are all learning, because that's really it. And I think the biggest thing is that we find, like, when we get stuck in the scroll, we find ourselves comparing ourselves to other yoga teachers that we don't know how long they've been doing it for, so we land up comparing our beginning to somebody else's middle, and a half, or wherever it is, and it shuts us down, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh, I resonated so much with what you said. Well, first of all, I love your like email blast story. That's so funny. It's sort of like the universe is like, yeah, you're gonna send this one out. Go ahead and send. I'll do it for you. That's so good. But yeah, it's like you said, it's Instagram is such a beautiful tool. Social media is such a beautiful tool, because I mean, you and I would not be connected if it weren't for that. And there's so, we're just one story of many. And it's almost like, it can be so overwhelming when we start maybe looking at hashtags, or just even simply like the people that we follow, and we're like, oh my gosh, that post got 500 likes. How did they do that? Like, it's just mind blowing. You're like, well, why would I even bother with my 15 likes or whatever it is? It's like, you can't compare. And also too, we have this idea of vanity metrics when it comes to Instagram. And it's like, we see these people with giant followings that are, let's say they're teaching restorative yoga or power yoga, and that, we're power yogis or restorative yogis. And we're like, well, why would I even bother? Everybody follows them. They may not have a huge engaged audience. And the other thing is, they aren't going to say it like you're going to say it. And only you can say it that way. So if you're not willing to show up or push past that little imposter syndrome dude who's sitting in the back and just say, you know what, I see you and I'm going to post anyway, you're actually doing a disservice. You're not meeting the people where they are. Like, they need you. They need you to show up with your unique message, because no one else can do it. So if you're feeling that way, it's so relatable, but just know that if you don't show up, you aren't serving your people and they're not getting that message.
And I think one of the most important things is also just to serve yourself. You know, like you owe it to yourself. Like you take part in a teacher training. Like I think of the first time I ever taught my first class, and I stood up on the podium and I actually wanted to like just go into a puddle of melted sweat on the floor, or just a puddle of me on the floor. Like it was terrifying. But you know, someone said to me when I did my first hot yoga class, they said you only have to do your first class once. And that's what I want to share with people, is that you only have to do it once. You only have to do your first once, your first live once, your first reel once, your first post once. And it's not about like you say, like the vanity metrics and touching on that. Like they look good and you feel good. You feel good when you see those hearts popping up and stuff. But I want to remind you of the power of one. The power of one person, the power of one person that is sitting there on the other end of the screen, that is taking the time to listen to what you have to say, or taking the time to just do your live yoga class, or taking the time to just take a couple of breaths when you are guiding them, or just taking the time to read your story and feeling inspired by it. But the power of one person, that is one more person that you have got, that is interested in you and interested in your yoga offerings and interested in what you have to say. That is one more person than you would have had if you were sitting there getting stuck in the scroll hole doing nothing. So whether you've got an audience of 10 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, if you are not serving those people, so like you said, Jess, like meeting them where they're at, like it is so, so important. If you're not serving them with your content, if you're not serving them by being relatable, then you're doing yourself the disservice. You're doing yourself the disservice. And like you say, like your community, they need you, you know. Yeah. I really believe it. It's such a, yeah, and it's such a thing. And you only really can see that once you get started, once you take that messy action and you can see like people saying, hey, like this resonates, this does it, whatever, you know, the conversations start happening. And I think the biggest thing, when the conversations start happening and it's the Me Too's and, you know, you're putting your hand up there and stepping up. Like, I truly believe teacher training is far more scary than showing up on Instagram.
Wasn't that conversation with Emily so good? She has incredible energy, and I just love this feminine approach to the chakra system and using it to manifest. If you have an inkling to write a book, maybe create a course, you should definitely check out her book. Again, it's The Meaning Method, A Spiritual Path to Writing and Publishing. And she's incredible. Definitely support her and check her out on Instagram as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Marketing Off the Mat podcast. I love hanging with you as we figure this thing out together. Do you have an idea or something to share with me? Send me a DM on Instagram at jessicacross.co and let me know what's on your mind. I'd be so grateful if you shared this with someone who could use this episode. And if you get a chance, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Catch you on the next episode. See ya.